dive in. You're here to do essential documentation and clinical trials at Research Site. And I want to learn a little bit about you, and you can learn a little bit about me. There's a little bit of a bio here. I've been involved with clinical research for several decades, having a variety of roles, and now a consultant trainer. This is going to focus on essential documents and go through what regulations state and, all of that sort of thing. And then what does it mean by essential documents? What do we mean by that? So that's basically what we're going to talk about today. All right, so for the learning objectives today, we're going to really kind of look at, as they say, what essential documents are, how is that defined? And then we're going to look at the subject-specific documents and those non-subject-specific documents. Non-subject meaning they're the generic things, like the protocol. That applies to everyone. Subject-specific would be something that, a particular lab report that refers to one particular person. An informed consent that, the signed informed consent that applies to one particular person. So dividing that up, what's a subject versus the non-subject documents. And then the essential documentation for drug versus device versus a combination product. A lot of the documentation is the same, but there are some nuances and some differences. And then the other piece is how to prepare for a regulatory inspection, which of course you will not have to worry about for quite some time, but it's always good to know what are they looking for, especially with the focus on the essential documentation. They look for a lot of other things, but essential documentation, what do they pick up? What does the FDA actually call out? And, issue 483s, which are findings, or objectionable findings, I should say, and what actually warrants, like even a warning letter. So if things are really severe, you could get a warning letter from the FDA. So we'll look at the essential document piece of that. There are other reasons you can get into trouble with the FDA in terms of not doing things properly, but essential documentation is our focus today. So in terms of when we said we're going to define it, here it is. Okay, it's all of the documents that we can think about, what do we need to be able to tell what happened in this study, a number of years from now. Let's say that 5 years from now. We say we did the study, it's now over, 5 years have passed, but now we need to get into some information, and we need to reconstruct what happened at this study. And maybe no one's around that worked on that study, which is not highly unlikely in this environment today. People do move around quite a bit. The monitors that worked on that trial may be working elsewhere for another company. The company may not even exist anymore. There are a lot of, mergers or takeovers. So what happens, that data that gets transferred to whoever bought that company, so they have those records. But if I'm coming in cold and there's no one around who actually ran that study, there's no study manager, there is no monitor, there's even maybe the sites, maybe some of those sites don't exist anymore. If the sites do exist, they'll be likely that some of them will exist. They don't have the personnel who worked on the study, okay? So what do? We have to go look at the documentation to reconstruct everything. The essential documents is what allows us to do that. They want us to see what do we do from very beginning to the very end. So the actual definition we can find in one of the ICH guidelines, the ICH GCP guideline, which is the ICH E6. That's your good clinical practice. And if we look at Section 8 of that particular document, the ICH E6, Section 8, that lists all of the essential documents. And they divide it up into 3 categories. What happens just before the study starts, what happens during the ongoing conduct of the study, and then what happens at that closeout of the study. So it's divided into those 3 buckets, and it's a very nice sort of depiction of what those essential documents are. I'm going to pop it up here. We do have it as a handout. And having said this, that we have this as a handout, and it's the E6 Revision 2, which has been in existence since 2016, we have an R3, Revision 3, coming out very soon. In fact, one piece of it has been released but we're going to, this is the one that's really effective right now, so we're going to still concentrate on this. So if I were to do, let's see, go to the Section 8 just to show you what that's like and refresh you. That is it. Let me just go back here to the beginning. All right, well, let me just turn that around. All right, this is Section 8 of that E6. Let me turn that one around. All right, so the way they kind of divide this up is, you see, as I said, it's in 3 sections: before the trial starts, during the trial, and after. So before the clinical phase of the trial commences, meaning before we actually start enrolling patients. So before the clinical phase, meaning clinical means that we have humans that are going to participate. Non-clinical means we're still doing bench or animal research. Okay, so what are all those documents that we need? Well, we need the investigator's brochure that tells us about the product, what's been done with it, what the prior research has been. And that would be, if it's the first in humans that we're doing now, what's happened at, bench research, animal research. If we're sort of in a phase 2 or we've already progressed with some clinical trials, it will contain all the information we know up to that point in time. The signed protocol, amendments. I'm not going to read all of these out to you, but I just want you to get a sense of what's here. And when you have time, take a look at this, and you can really see what all these documents are. The nice part about this is that not only does it list all of the essential documents, but it lists the purpose of those documents here. Why do we have that? And where it's filed. Most of the documents are filed both at the site and at the sponsor. The sponsor being the pharmaceutical company, the biotech, whoever is actually running the trial.